Hey, it's Steve Thomason, and this is Drawing Through Luke. This is episode 2, and in this episode, I'm going to show you how I use Logos Bible software to map out the entire gospel between narrative lectionary passages, non-narrative lectionary passages, and hit the key settings for each scene that will eventually become the graphic novel. So let's jump in. So I'm using Logos Bible software to map out the whole gospel. So just let me show you the steps that I take. So first of all, I've laid out my desktop like this, where I have a notebook open. I've got a blank notebook, and if you want to start a new notebook, you need to click on the notebooks section right here and click the plus sign to create a new notebook, and then it'll be blank. And then over here in this window, I have my New Revised Standard Version open of the Gospel of Luke. And the cool thing about this is on the left hand side there is the whole outline of the gospel. So the first thing that I did was I looked at the Narrative Lectionary reading schedule. And you'll see that here on December 20th, we begin with Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through 45. We minimize that. And so Luke chapter 1, verse 26 through 45. So I'm going to come down to Luke 1, verse 26, and I'm going to highlight 26 through verse 45. Now there's a couple different ways I can do this. One is I can come over here and click New Note, or I could right click right on top of it, make sure that I have Selection, and then take a note. And the name of my notebook is A1 Sample for this video. So if I click that, you'll see that it automatically puts an anchor for the selection that I had. And then what I want to do is, since this is an actual narrative lectionary, I'm going to type in the date, December 20th, and then I'm also going to type in the reference 26 through 45. And the cool thing about Logos is that whenever you type in a reference, it automatically hyperlinks it. So it'll jump to that reference in your Bible software. So you can see wherever I am, I'm going to jump there. Now, since this is a narrative lectionary, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change the color of it to green. And you'll see that it changes the text itself to green. And then I'm going to choose an icon of a star. And you'll notice that right here in the text, it'll give me a star, and that'll indicate a new narrative lectionary text. And you can see when I hover over it, it'll give me whatever I've written inside of the note body. So there I've got December 20th and the passage. That's pretty cool. Now you'll notice that the narrative lectionary doesn't start at the beginning of the Gospel of Luke. So that creates an issue if my graphic novel is going to cover the whole text. So what I did was I went through and I found all of the holes. So this would be like a narrative lectionary hole. And I highlight that and I create another note in my notebook. But this time I want to change the color to orange, and I want to remove the icon. And it's out of order, so I want to click and drag this note up. And so now when I go through my notes, I can see that I click the anchor, because it automatically puts this anchor in because I had it highlighted. I go to the very first verse, and this is orange. And as I scroll through the text, then I come to the green text. So I know that the orange text is non-narrative lectionary. And so just to be crystal clear, I'm going to go into the note itself and put non-narrative lectionary, and then type in the text just to be safe, Luke 1 through 25. And then it also creates a hyperlink. So what I've done is I've gone through the entire gospel and have done that. And once I did that, then I did one other thing. Because I'm doing a graphic novel, I want to think of this as like a movie. And so I wanted to know every time the story changes settings. And so did a careful reading through the gospel. And these first 4 verses don't really tell us where things are. It's really the author's address to the audience, as Luke is writing to Theophilus. But we do see that the story starts in the temple in Jerusalem with Zechariah. And so right here it says he went to enter the sanctuary of the Lord. So that's the actual setting. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right mouse click on that. And right here, there's a place for highlight. And when I click highlight, it opens up this menu of highlight options, which is really cool. Emphasis markup, it's called. And I'm going to choose this color box. And you'll see that it puts that color box around that selection, which is really cool. And it also creates a note. So I'm going to drag that note up actually above that. So this is my location note, and this is my text itself. So then I keep reading, and I discover that here in verse 23, after the scene in the temple, it says that Zechariah went to his home. So I'm going to right mouse click that. And right here, it shows you the most recent highlight that you've used. Nice little shortcut. So I'm just going to click that color box, and boom, there it is, next location. So I've gone through the entire gospel and done that. So let me show you what that looks like when it's all finished. Okay, so this is what it actually looks like now that I've gone through the whole gospel and done that process. You can see if I scroll through, you can see my location boxes, my orange for the non-narrative lectionary selections, the green text for the narrative lectionary selections. And as I scroll through, I can very easily identify scene changes and the narrative lectionary and the narrative lectionary gaps. I want to show you a cool tool about Logos. Is I'm actually going to change right here to multiple columns, and then I'm going to change the text size to super small. This is a really neat feature, and I'm going to close down my outline. This is a cool way to scan, like to get just like a visual overview of how much the narrative lectionary actually skips. So I can scroll through the whole gospel and see the parts where the narrative lectionary hits it and where it doesn't. And then if I ever get lost, I can come over here to my notes and I can find the part where I want to go. So I'm going to go back to the beginning, Luke 1. And so that's how I mapped out the whole gospel, narrative lectionary, non-narrative lectionary, and scene changes. And I'm going to show you one last thing that I did using Logos. Is I created just a blank note and went through and outlined, there's 4 basic sections to the Gospel of Luke. Part 1 is Luke 1 through 4:13, which is preparation. And so I just typed this in and it automatically hyperlinks it. And then part 2 is the ministry in Galilee. And so when I typed in Luke 4:14 through 9:50, it hyperlinked it. So I can just click on that and it jumps me right to that passage. And you can see, now that I've color-coded my text, I can see that the narrative lectionary actually preaches the beginning of part 2, verses 14 through 30. And by this little star because I start it, I know that it is actually the beginning of a new narrative lectionary, and I can see that we're going to preach that on January 17th. And it takes place in Galilee because it's the beginning of the Galilean ministry. It starts off in Nazareth. So that sermon's going to take place in Nazareth. And so is the panel that I'm going to draw for that part. And then we got part 3 over here, Luke 9. This is where Jesus, he set his face to go to Jerusalem. And you can see that I also highlighted that key text right there. He set his face to go to Jerusalem. That's where we shift from the Galilean ministry to this journey narrative as he goes to Jerusalem. And that happens for 10 chapters. And then finally in Luke 19, verse 28, he gets to Jerusalem and we enter into the Passion Week. So that is how I used Logos Bible software to just do an initial outline, color coding, and scene changes for the gospel. And then next week I'm going to drill down into really mapping out the pages and how we're going to write this script. All right, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.